Ooh, probably Lee Wood versus Kakachi. I think they've all got intrigue and they've all got their own. They all hold interest in their own merit, especially as well. Josh Taylor's return to the ring. There's a lot of question marks around him moving up to welterweight, and it being Echo Esserman being your first step into welterweight, which is no easy task at all for the back of two contenders for Fight of the Year, at least on the domestic scene. So that's a tough challenge for Josh Taylor, who a lot are wondering how much he's got left in the tank. I mentioned there previously about Kakachi and Leewood, or Leewood and Kakachi. That's Leewood's long-awaited return to the ring, and he's signed with Queensberry Promotions and back in at Nottingham. And he's got a lot of history, of course, in Nottingham, but also a lot of history with the Irish in Nottingham, having fought Mick Conlan in what was a brutal and stunning affair at the start and at the end of the fight. And I expect very much the same sort of type of fireworks on that night. And then this launch one with heavyweights, I think is a real hallmark of what Frank Warren is looking to achieve. And when I looked at this card, I thought, should I be comparing this to Eddie Hearn and what he's offered in the UK? Yeah, sure. Do I think this is a good, solid start and maybe better than what Hearn's offering at the moment in the UK? I think probably, yeah. Do I think this is a better launch than how Eddie Hearn launched DAZN with his first card? And I debated this one a little bit. I'm not too sure. That Liam Smith versus Anthony Fowler card, which featured the likes of Ted Cheeseman versus Troy Williamson. Kieran Conway was in against JJ Metcalf, I believe. And I think Shannon Courtney, was that the night that she got upset? Was it Rachel Ball?
I think so.
No, it was Jamie Mitchell.
Oh.
Jamie Mitchell. I'm kind of wondering, like, can't quite fully fledge out the comparison just yet because the card's not complete, but it's a very strong start to say that Frank Warren's, and of course the jeopardy of it being the heavyweights and the name recognition on both sides. I think Frank's got a real strong calling to say he's really putting his mark down on DAZN as to the competition, not the friendliness and working together. He mentioned in the interview, the sit down I did at his office, that this is competition, and he's put a big, strong flag in the ground to say that he's going to be the one, or wanting to be the one that's the lead promoter at DAZN with this launch offering. So I think it's a good set of fights. Riakporhe and Okolie reigniting their rivalry at heavyweight this time around. I wonder what that does for Riakporhe moving up to heavyweight against Lawrence Okolie, who's just stepped his foot in there and looked for what a lot of people have said for a long time, that he'd be very much at home at heavyweight. And then Joyce versus Whyte, I think, is a really, really good clash in prospect. And I would put, as I put out on Twitter, am I wrong in thinking that Joyce stands to be the favorite, although he lost to Derek Chisora? Maybe that's not too bad.
Surely not. Surely
I don't know. I don't know. I can't, as much as I maybe called Wallin and Chisora and Wallin wrong, off of the back of Dillian Whyte versus Ebenezer Tete, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Whyte looked laboured, but he'd been out the ring for a long time. Joyce hasn't looked good for quite a while. And against the lower level of opposition, perhaps, as well. I've been quite vocal in the fact that I feel Joyce, it's time for him to retire. That same may be true of Dillian Whyte. I need to see more of him. I don't think we saw enough against Tete. We need to see him against a proper opponent. But yeah, for me, I would make Whyte a solid favourite, but maybe the bookmakers will disagree.
Yeah, I mean, if you want me to go into my prediction now for that fight, I can do. Yeah. So I just, in my head, when I lay out the land for this fight, I just think Joyce, whatever he does, is he always puts pressure on you, and he always depletes the gas tank of the opponent. And that was when I picked my pick for Chisora versus Wallin, thinking it'd be Wallin, it was because I couldn't get the image of Chisora running around the ring in that final few minutes to get out of the way of Joyce, even though he'd dropped him a couple of times. I couldn't get that out of my mind, and I thought a fitter and durable and maybe an ambitious Otto Wallin might have been able to do something a little bit more. We'll talk about that later on in our future segment.
Yeah, but I was very disappointed with Wallin Saturday night.
Me too. But Joyce, I think he still has that. Even if maybe the chin isn't as strong as it once was, he's still a good front foot fighter and someone who can take a shot and deliver it questions might be as to whether he should be taking those shots and coming back with it. But he's in the ring. He's made that choice to continue. I just wonder if Dillian Whyte's left hook is as potent as it once was. Maybe the age and the wear and tears is driving down Dillian from where he was once at the top table or somewhere near around that. I think his powers at the top are a lot more to question than what Joyce has got left in the tank. So that's why I make Joyce the favourite for the moment.
Right, now I'll go into my feedback on the schedule in a moment, but I want to get the poll up nice and early. I mean, we weren't nice and early, so the poll might as well be. So we're asking you, which was the best fight announced in Frank Warren's schedule today? Was it Dillian Whyte against Joe Joyce? Was it Anthony Kakachi defending his super featherweight world title against former featherweight champ Lee Wood? Was it Lee McGregor against Nate Collins, which I think is a real underrated, potentially banger? Or other? And if you do pick other, please comment in the chat which fight you think will be the best that's not on our list. Modfather Frank, if you can whack that up, we would really appreciate it. Zambanu Love says, disappointed Bricktop's giving Whyte another payday. He's had about the same number of PPVs than tests he's failed. I mean, are you including other tests in that? Because Whyte has had quite a few pay-per-views. Are you including, maths tests, spelling tests? Who knows? I think we know the type of test you are referring to. Zambanu Love says either Shannon loss makes Eddie's card better. Oh, yeah. I think he means like Shannon Courtney's, any Shannon's loss, maybe. Shannon Ryan, Shannon Courtney. DB Coupon says Turkey/Riyadh season changed Frank's entire fortune. He kept the £3 million fighters bonus. Well, he's never confirmed that he kept it. And reinvested into his stable for the first time ever, paying off. Martin Mulligan says Kakachi Wood will be a war. Great fight. Thunder Road. Thanks, Thunder Road. The magic of the FA Cup has killed Danny's quadruple talk. Big up Plymouth Argyle. Yeah, I mean, that didn't make a lot of happy faces in the Flexon household yesterday, I've got to say, when we watched it. My son played football for his team in the morning, and pouring down rain, hated that. I did, not him. And he got player of the match, so he was really, really happy. We went out for lunch to kind of celebrate. It's a bit of a tradition when he gets player of the match, which, he's not in a good team like he used to be, so it happens a lot. Just kidding, if anyone from that team is listening. And then, yeah, we lost to Plymouth. And I found it quite funny because I was like, well, they're bottom of the championship, So what? If that's what's going to put paid to our quadruple plans, kind of ironic. I quite like it. He was just inconsolable, really, really angry. So it ruined his day. But yeah, getting back onto the boxing talk. So the poll is now up. So do pick what you think is the best fight of the Frank Warren shows announced today. So starting at the start in Manchester, I guess my biggest thing is that it should have been in London. I know they've got a big thing with Co-op Live. They've probably got a preferential deal there. But you've got the top 4 fighters, the ones that were announced today, all from London. Dillian Whyte, Joe Joyce, and Lawrence Okoli, Richard Riakporhe, all Londoners. And they're fighting in Manchester. Makes 0 sense from that perspective. Aside from that bugbear, I think they're 2 decent fights. One maybe harder to call than the other. I've not seen any real explanation why Riakporhe's moved up to heavyweight. Also, that was a fight, him and Okoli, that probably should have been made down at cruiser when everyone was talking about it, and they were both still unbeaten. Now they've both lost to the same man, funnily enough, in Chris Billam-Smith, and he'll be looking on wondering, why he's not on such a huge card, although he's had a few huge cards of his own not too long ago, so maybe not be greedy, I suppose. Not that I'm saying he is, I'm putting words in his mouth. But yeah, I think you've got to favour Okoli in that. He's shown that he can compete at both bridgerweight and heavyweight since reigning at cruiser. And we don't know what to expect from Riakporhe at the heaviest weight division. Plus, in his last fight against Billam-Smith, probably one of his worst performances in the last couple of years, really didn't seem to turn up. And I want to give credit to Billam-Smith, of course. He negated a lot of what Riakporhe wanted to do. But at the same time, when the fight was clearly going against him, 6 rounds, 8 rounds in, we never really saw that switch up from Riakporhe. So he's got a lot to prove coming into this fight. The other big one on the bill, Dillian Whyte against Joe Joyce, I think should be rebranded as kind of a loser leaves boxing match. Although I said the similar sort of thing about Joyce against Chisora, and look at how Chisora's doing now. Although he won the fight, so I guess that makes sense. But yeah, loser leaves Queensbury. That's how I'd mark it, a bit like WWE. I thought for a long time that Joyce should retire. I think there's a few warning signs about his physical conditioning, and we'll wait and see how that all pans out. Dillian Whyte didn't look great in his last fight after ages of inactivity. It's hard to see him challenging for a world title again, either of them challenging for a world title again. So, yeah, I mean, whoever doesn't win that, I'd like to see pack it in perhaps. And maybe if Dillian Whyte comes through, he can have his role in his old rival Derek Chisora's swan song out in Riyadh, his 50th fight. And it'll be the final chance for Chisora to get a win over Whyte after controversially losing a decision the first time around and then getting wiped out in, I think it was round 11 of the rematch, despite winning on the cards, or 2 of the 3 cards, I believe it was. So, yeah, decent start. Then you go to Nottingham. We don't know a lot about the Nottingham card yet, but we do know the main event, which is an absolute cracker. The best of the 3 main events, in my view, that were announced today, which is Anthony Kakachi, who's been on incredible form recently after struggling with injuries and inactivity for a long period of his career. Now doing really well. And you've got Lee Wood, who, you know, looked great at featherweight until just recently moving up to super featherweight. He's been waiting for a big fight. And we're so used to seeing Lee Wood on Matchroom cards. It'll be interesting to see him move over to a Queensbury show to challenge the Queensbury fighter in Kakachi. I think style should mesh really well in that fight. And you've got 2 good training camps and trainers as well. So it'll be a bit of a chess match with those guys in the corner too. So I'm really looking forward to that. Interesting to see what they add to the undercard. And then you've got the one out in Glasgow. Now, I've got to say, when it was first announced, when I first read it on the email that Josh Taylor would be fighting Echo Esserman, my immediate thought was mismatch. And I really like Echo, and I mean no disrespect. But you've got a former undisputed world champion who's only lost to world-class fighters going up against the guy who arguably peaked at British level. Now, Echo would argue that he hasn't peaked yet, and I hope that's true. But I think there's certain factors that make this a more competitive fight than it otherwise might be. We don't know what Josh Taylor's going to be like up at welterweight for a start. Echo Esserman's a career welterweight, very muscular physique, great engine, as befits his nickname. So that's a test in itself. And Josh Taylor hasn't looked like the Josh Taylor of old in some time. In fact, some might say he looks like an old Josh Taylor. See what I did there. And we'll wait and see how he gets on. But Echo Esserman has got nothing to lose. No one's going to be expecting him to win this fight. He'll go in, sets of eyes will be on Echo Esserman that have never watched him before because he's going up against a well-known, world-class, as far as we're still aware, fighter in Josh Taylor. And even if he gives a good account of himself and doesn't win, it could do wonders for his career. So he'll be highly motivated. And will Josh Taylor be as motivated going down? Will he fight down to the level of opposition? That's kind of a key question as well. Has he still got it? What form will he show in the fight itself? So I'm actually a lot more intrigued by that fight than I was at first glance. And then you've got a couple of other fights on that Glasgow show that are really good as well. Like Nate Collins, who's a bit of a sleeper in the featherweight division, doesn't get talked about anywhere near enough. Last time I spoke to him, he was calling out Nick Ball. Well, he doesn't get Nick Ball, but he does get a WBC international title shot against Lee McGregor, who beat Isaac Lowe recently. He's on good form after some, troubles earlier in his career. I think that's an incredible. It's Edinburgh against Glasgow, on a Scottish card as well. That's a historic rivalry there. I remember the likes of, Alex Arthur against Willie Limond. There's probably much older ones than that, but I'm not quite old enough to talk to you with any knowledge about those. And Jameson on there as well. That fight's good too. That's obviously designed to be a step up for the Warren fighter and that, but Jameson will be in front of his home crowd and he'll be desperate to impress them as well. So I think the Glasgow show might be the best of the lot. So yeah.